everyone. Welcome. I'm Carter Foster. I'm Deputy Director for Curatorial Affairs at the Blanton Museum of Art. Thanks so much for joining us. And welcome to this 24th edition of SoundsSpace. We're so happy to bring this program back, although virtually this time. Hopefully before too long we can do it in the museum. I just want to give a few housekeeping reminders. Your audio is muted and only the speakers are visible on the screen. The event tonight is being recorded and it'll be available on our YouTube channel in about a week from now. We've split the performance this evening into 3 sections so that we can have some discussion between the sections and to have Q&As from the audience at the end and possibly during the other section discussions. If you have a question, please type it in the Q&A window rather than the chat, although you're welcome to make comments in the chat. And those buttons are at the bottom of your screen. Let's see. Now let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce Steve Parker, who many of you probably know. Steve is an artist, musician, and curator who works with salvaged musical instruments, amateur choirs, marching bands, urban bat colonies, flocks of grackles, and pedicab fleets to investigate systems of control, interspecies behavior, and forgotten histories. His projects include elaborate civic rituals for humans, animals, and machines, listening sculptures modeled after obsolete surveillance tools, and cathartic transportation symphonies for operators of cars, pedicabs, and bicycles. He is the recipient of the Rome Prize, the Ashurst Prize, the Tito's Prize, and a Fulbright, along with multiple grants from the National Endowments for the Arts. That was a great bio. Did you write that, Steve? It was fabulous.
Well, I mean, one of the things about being an artist is you constantly have to revise your artist statement. So it's still a lifelong project.
Yeah, well, I love how it gets right to the point. So tell us a little bit about the history of SoundSpace and what your inspiration was for this particular edition.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to take a part in SoundSpace at the Blanton for I guess it's almost been 10 years at this point. And I'd say it kind of grew out of a desire to think about novel contexts, both for performance and also think about the context of the museum as a site for time-based media. And I think the Blanton is just an ideal place to provide a nexus of those sorts of things. So thinking about performances as sort of like time-based sculptures, and also providing an opportunity for audience members to experience performances as they desire, as they would sort of experience it in a museum, analogous to a museum experience, where you go to the things that you want to see and you spend time and you look at things at different distances, and there's an element of control that the audience has. And so, yeah, it's been really nice to have the opportunity to be a part of that programming and to provide a platform for that sort of new work to be created.
Yeah, well, thank you. We love having you, and it's I'm sure this program is going to continue for a long time, as long as you don't leave Austin. Although maybe we find somebody else. But anyway, so thanks for all your work and for your collaboration.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
I think that's all I have. We can start the first.
Yeah. Oh, maybe. Yeah. This is. Should we just maybe talk about the program a little bit?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
These are all solo works by 8 incredible artists. Some all have Austin connections, but some are no longer in Austin. And I don't think we need to say too much about the work they're doing, because luckily they're introducing their works to each of us. So I think we can. Yeah, just go ahead and get started with sharing these great works.
So this first part's about 30 minutes, I believe, and so we'll come back after there's 3 of them in the first. Is that right? Yeah.
4.
4. Okay, so there's 4. Okay, thanks. Sorry.
Yep. All right.
Hello, my name is Michael J. Love, and I am an interdisciplinary tap dance artist. And for my SoundSpace piece, I was really thinking about, in response to Tavares Strong's neon sign, about time, place, and space. Searching through rhythm and sound for belonging. Super short explanation, but that's what I was thinking about. So it's all improvisation. Most of it was a cappella. And it was really just about working with Jose, the video editor, and Steve to sort of join just raw video footage of myself working out ideas in the studio with footage that was captured of the neon sign itself. So enjoy.
My name is Olani Rashid Akindia, aka Akiraj. My performance for the SoundsSpace for the Blanton is titled Iye Olomo, Mother's Affection. It's deeply look into the relationship between mother and the child, which started right from the beginning when the mother is pregnant, and how the love and the affection and the connection and the bond so developed throughout the pregnancy to the time that both of them will face each other when the birth of the baby is arrived. And this development and love and affection and bond continue as the child is growing. Even when the child becomes an adult and also married, have their own children, the love of the mother still continues. And this is also part of what the performance looking into, and how until when the time that comes that both of this mother and the child are separate from one another. Either the mother died at the old age, joined the ancestors. So this love, no matter how it is never reduced. 99% of love between mother and child is mostly positive among the cultures of people. So this is what the performance that I created is looking into.
Yeah, mama yo! Yeah, yeah, mama, yeah, oh, mama. Oh, yeah, yeah, me, oh, yeah, me. Yeah, mama, yeah, mama, yeah, oh, mama. Yeah, mama. Mama, 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 eh, oh, mama, yeah, oh, mama. Yamio, 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 yeah. Yeah, mama, yo, mama, yo, mama. Yeah, 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 yamio, mama. Yamio, yamio, mama. Yeah, yeah, alama, yeah, yeah, alama, yeah, yeah, alama, da. Yamie, 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 yamie. Yeah, yeah, me down. Yeah, yeah, me down. Yeah, yeah, me down. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, ooh. Yeah, yeah, ooh. Yeah, yeah, ooh. Yeah, yeah. Mama mia, mama mia, mama mia, mama. Yeah, yeah, alama, yeah, 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 alama da, yeah, yeah. Mama, 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 yeah. Mama, 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 yeah, yeah. Mama, 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 mama. Mama mi do, mama mi do, mama mi do, mama. Mama yo, mama yo, mama mio, mama. Mama, 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 yo, mama mio, mama mio, mama. Iya mi do, iya mi do, iya mi do, iya mi o. Yeah, yeah, alama, yeah, yeah, alama, yeah, yeah, alama, yeah, yeah. Mama, 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 mama. Yeah, yeah, mio, yeah, yeah, mio, yeah, yeah, me, oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, me, oh, yeah, yeah, me, oh, yeah, yeah, me, oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, me, no, yeah, yeah, me, no, yeah, yeah, me, da, yeah, yeah, oh. Yeah, me, da, eh. Iyamida, Iyamida, oh, yeah, 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 alamo, yeah, yeah, alamo, yeah, yeah, alamo, yeah, yeah, alamo. Iyamida, Iyamida, yeah, yeah, mida, yeah, 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 meow, yeah, yeah, meow, yeah, yeah, meow, yeah, yeah. Yeah, meow, yeah, yeah, meow, mama, meow, mama, mama, meow, mama, meow, mama, meow, mama. Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, akírọ̀ṣì dìde òkò òjò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bámijó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, akírọ̀ṣì dìde òkò òjò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bámijó. Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, akírọ̀ṣì dìde o, kó jó ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo. Nwẹ́, 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 wá, 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 wá. Ó ti tó ọmọ mi, ó ti tó ọmọ mi, ó ti tó ọmọ mi, ó ti tó ọmọ mi. Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá mi jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, akírọ̀ṣì dìde òkò òjò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, akírọ̀ṣì dìde òkò òjò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo. Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá mi jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, akírọ̀ṣì dìde òkò òjò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá mi jó, akírọ̀ṣì dìde òkò òjò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, akírọ̀ṣì dìde òkò òjò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo, akírọ̀ṣì dìde òkò òjò, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ banjo. Sàlámù alékùm onílé, sàlámù alékùm onílé, onílé mo sàlámọ̀, sàlámù alékùm onílé. Lọ́kùnrin pẹ̀lú obìnrin ò, sàlámù alékùm onílé. Wẹ́, 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 wẹ́. Sàlámù alékùm onílé, sàlámù alékùm onílé, onílé mo sàlámọ̀, sàlámù alékùm onílé. Lọ́kùnrin pẹ̀lú obìnrin ò, sàlámù alékùm onílé. Onílé mo sàlámọ̀, ò, sàlámù alékùm onílé. Lọ́kùnrin pẹ̀lú obìnrin ò, sàlámù alékùm onílé. Salam aleikum onílé. Salam aleikum onílé. Onílé mo sálámọ̀. Salam aleikum onílé. Wẹ́ẹ́ 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 wẹ́ẹ́. Salam aleikum onílé. Salam aleikum onílé. Onílé mo sálámọ̀. Salam aleikum onílé. Lọ́kùnrin pẹ̀lú obìnrin o. Salam aleikum onílé. Onílé mo sálámọ̀. Salam aleikum onílé. Onílé mo sálámọ̀. Salam aleikum onílé. Lọ́kùnrin pẹ̀lú obìnrin. Salam aleikum onílé. Lọ́kùnrin pẹ̀lú obìnrin o. Aleikum onílé. Onílé mo sálámọ̀. Salam aleikum onílé. Lọ́kùnrin pẹ̀lú obìnrin. Salam aleikum onílé. Onílé mo sálámọ̀. Salam aleikum onílé. Lọ́kùnrin pẹ̀lú obìnrin. Salam aleikum onílé. Onílé mo sálámọ̀. Salam aleikum onílé. Lọ́kùnrin pẹ̀lú obìnrin. Salam aleikum onílé. Onílé mo sálámọ̀. Salam aleikum onílé.
Hello, my name is Henna Cho, and I've created a sound collage in response to a piece called Vivir a los Saltos, To Live by Leaps and Bounds, painted in 1964 by self-taught Argentinian artist Romulo Maxio. The title for the painting, Vivir a los Saltos, implies both a positive call to action as well as an ironic critique to mass media and consumer society.
I am Alexa Capareda, and I have filmed a dance work responding to Philip Evergood's 1934 painting, Dance Marathon. The painting itself, with its lurid details and rich coloring, is a commentary on the cruel depravity and desperation of the dance until you drop marathons of the Depression era, where people would dance for days past exhaustion just to win a bit of prize money. In my piece, I explore movement that evokes and exaggerates that grotesque physical toll, as well as the timelessness of pushing and overworking our bodies just to get by. I mixed and warped some popular dance music of the 30s to create a sense of that surreal delirium.
Why must you wander and fall?
Wow, that was fantastic. Thank you, Alexa. And thanks to all the performers for those amazing performances. Really fabulous. And you were just lighting up the chat, Alexa. People really.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. That's so lovely to see. I'm just like so excited that people are moved by the work. And
Yeah.
Fantastic first 3 performances as well.
I was going to ask you the obvious, which is why you picked that painting, which I think I know why, because it depicts it, for a dancer to pick that painting makes sense. But that painting is kind of an icon in our collection. Philip Evergood's maybe not the best known American artist, but he's a very interesting figure who kind of has, I would call him generally a figural expressionist, but there's aspects of surrealism, magic realism, all these things flowing through his work. This is probably his greatest painting, or one of them, certainly. It's quite large. It's not quite life-size, but the dancers are quite big. It's certainly quite sinister in its way. It looks like, for people that know the painting, you've probably seen it a lot. If you go to the Blanton regularly, it's almost always up. And it has this kind of, the dance floor is like a spider web, literally. It's got like a spider web image sort of woven into it. There's a demented Mickey Mouse in the upper right. And the, which it's funny, I gave it toward people from Disney and had to point that out to them, of course. But it's, it's a strange and very disturbing painting. It's about a very strange phenomenon made famous by this film. They shoot horses, don't they? So what was your process like? As I was watching you, I was wondering how much, if any, was improvised and how much you actually choreographed carefully. And clearly the music was a very important part of it. The way you manipulated the music, it seemed like you were doing that in certain cases. I would just maybe talk about your process, how you approached this sort of this piece.
Absolutely. Actually, so I was initially stumped on what piece to respond to, and it was Steve who actually suggested this one. And immediately I'm like, duh, of course I should pick that one, because and I do love that painting, and I remember standing in front of it for quite a long time, observing its many details in person. And it has it's that grotesque, like the physicality of it is palpable in the sort of warped, that surrealism, which is something that and Steve knows me really well. We've worked together a little bit now, and so it's very much something that I lean into in my work. And even like the way that they're sort of their bones and the skeletal like hand, and I always think about my sort of skeletal hands and just like leaning into that's the sort of weird things, and also like that sense of exhaustion that you can see and in the painting. So of course, like immediately I was like, yes, this one, perfect. And I started to do some research. I knew a little bit about the dance marathons, about the Depression era, but I listened to even more podcasts about it, and it's really wild. Like this was sort of that era's reality shows, or people would go to these, and they barely had a break, and maybe 15 minutes to take a nap or go to the bathroom. And I also watched that film with Jane Fonda, and which was very much a great depiction of that of those dance marathons. Yeah, it's a psychological drama directed by Sydney Pollack. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's called They Shoot Horses, Don't They? I just actually found it on YouTube, I think, so you can watch the whole film. Yeah, the sort of really messed up things that people did for money and desperation. And after sort of getting that sense, and I was thinking about the music that they would have used at those marathons, and I looked up the sort of 30s music, and in wanting to create that sense of like delirium that you feel when you're tired, and the sort of like warped reality, I knew I wanted to manipulate the audio. So I picked a few songs that also I felt like had a connection thematically. Like a lot of them are by Jack Hilton and his orchestra that I just found. Like it starts with like Let's Face the Music and Dance, which is a very popular, well-known tune. And then some of the I sampling some of the lyrics, like one of the pieces is called How Long Will It Last? So sort of thinking about that length of like what you're feeling in this marathon. And one of them is, it's called Just Another Day Wasted Away. And then it ends on a song called So Tired, which is what the title is, and kind of repeats that. And so I just did all of that manipulation myself in Audacity. I'm by no means an experienced music editor, but for me, I need that as an anchor to build the piece and have an arc, because because it helps me to make that arc physically. So I created the sort of score for myself, the musical score, and I went into a studio and just started experimenting with physical ideas and really leaning into my imagination of what that would feel like, and not really specifically recalling, like pulling in some of the Charleston steps and some steps that they would have done, but also kind of bringing in my own vocabulary. And I sort of make a list in my head of the things that I want to make sure I do. Like I want to make sure that I, do this thing where I slide down, or like I repeatedly fall, or I fall in a back bend. And the music helps me know where I am, like how long I have to explore that concept. So I'll kind of put that with this musical section. And so on the day, and I really, really have to give a shout out to Jose for his amazing filming and editing of this, because it's almost like it's like a true collaboration with the film person, because I'm just really trusting him to, capture the moments that I find valuable. And he was able to really bring that together. We filmed it 3 times. So it was almost really helpful the last time, because I definitely felt that tiredness. And I think a lot of that towards the end, what he used was from the sort of last take, because he did like a wider shot, some close-up tracking shots. And so that's kind of how it happened.
So it was edited from 3 performances. He took aspects of each one and put them together. I think he did. And so is it fair to say you had certain things you wanted to do, certain moves you wanted to do, but you were improvising a little bit as to when they would come in each performance?
Yeah, and I mean, it's sort of, I did things like similarly but different. So the sort of, if you have a musical score, I have a movement score for myself.
Right.
I followed that pretty fairly similarly across the 3 times. So he, I think, was able to latch on to the things that I was, finding important. And
Did you know much about the history of popular dance, or do you know much about like the dance from that era? Did you have to brush up on that, or did you want to? Or
I watched a little bit. I just kind of looked at some clips of what the movement styles were. I did a little bit of research on that, just to, again, like put in the sort of, I very much was bringing it into, my own sort of vocabulary. but definitely it helped to, I did a lot of watching old documentaries and films.
YouTube is a great tool for that.
Yes.
The first time I watched it, I could tell you were trained as a ballet dancer. It just seemed very clear to me. I just wonder what it's like combining different styles of dance. Is it like deep in your bones now and kind of comes very naturally? Or, I love ballet. I'm a huge fan myself, especially 20th century ballet. So, and one of the things, the virtuosity of it's so difficult to do. And that just, your virtuosity just shines through so clearly. And
thank you.
It's curious.
Well, that's always my, I'm always trying to find that intersection between virtuosity and, in a playful way, bring it in. And it comes I don't really think about it. It's more of a natural, I kind of like to think of my body as this, machine that's, I call myself a dancing noodle robot kind of, because it's like, to me, I have these vocabularies that are encoded, especially ballet is sort of the most drilled in there, military style since '7. And then so many others like modern dance and so many other things that exist in my body. I did this solo a few years ago that I called Alexa Do the Blue Danube Waltz, where I sort of imagined, especially because my name Alexa at the time, I was thinking about how ubiquitous it is now that it's a robot
surveillance tool
and things that you and so I was thinking about how they fed like a certain AI romance novels, and it spit out because romance novels are very formulaic. So with that solo that I had done, I thought about how the Blue Danube Waltz is very formulaic. A lot of ballet is very formulaic. And I imagined again, and I saw this animated GIF of an AI that taught itself how to walk. And this is why I'm in maybe I can demonstrate kind of what I did. It's kind of it was just it was just really funny. And I kind of leaned in a little bit to that physicality for that one. And it's like that. Like if I had ballet in my body, if I had modern dance in my body, if I have, the dance styles of Pina Bausch in my body, what happens when you tell Alexa to do something and what comes out? And that's sort of the exciting part of doing my art. Is I always approach it that way. Like, okay, now we've fed Alexa all of these things, and what will come out. And so I've watched this movie with, and I've read about this painting. I've, researched about the Depression era and watched some videos of how people danced and how people dressed, and imagine what it's like to be under that level of exhaustion, and that's what came out.
I felt like I saw some Twyla Tharp in there. I don't know if that's right or not. But
sure.
And then I was going to ask you something else. Oh, was the prop, was that always part of it from the beginning? And did you make it yourself?
A little bit. Yeah, so I had this, because in those dance marathons, you frequently have to have a partner. And actually, that was one of the main plot points of the film with They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Is that she had to find a partner. And so there was not, I was thinking of who could be my partner, but also, and so I borrowed my friend Taryn's, shout out Taryn, thank you for the mannequin. I borrowed her mannequin and I dressed it up in a tux and a top hat, because you can see that some of those in the painting, there's a very prominent, and which it kind of works because really most of the time, you can even see in some of the historical footage of it, people tying their hands together over their partner so that they can nap and not fall down while they're, I also, it's one of the things that didn't make it in there, but I kind of thought about for a second was what if I brought a toothbrush and started brushing it, because they would do that too. If I started doing my hair or doing something, because they would have to keep that going while they're in these dance marathons. But that didn't do, but
I was curious because it was kind of fortuitous that it was in a round room, which is not a usual space for the Blanton. And so did that affect the choreography at all for you?
I loved it because it felt very circular, and it feels a little, it feels wide, but it's also in a way kind of trapping you, and you're
right
in this circular energy.
Right. Well, and I guess it echoes the shape in the painting, right? I think it was.
It's on the wall that's like this.
Yeah.
And then the way that it feels a little bit like fisheye, or like it
yeah.
that kind of a lens. So it really is very warped in a way, and so I just really love that.
It's lurid. I would say the painting is lurid.
Yes.
When it comes to Michael me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, do you have any comments or questions that you want to ask for?
Oh, I just thought it was wonderful and so haunting, especially musically. I think the only thing I want to add is that Alexa is also performing this weekend at KMFA. So people who are tuning in tonight can see her in person. This is on Saturday, correct?
On Saturday at 2:30, KMFA is having KMFA Day, celebrating their new space on 41 Navasota Street. And I'm performing with Brent Baldwin and Convergence. So Brent's written a beautiful piece called Pieces Every Step with soprano Katrina, I'm forgetting her last name, but the really beautiful chorus of 6 or 7 people, and Benji on the keys, and it's a really moving piece that's kind of thinking about what it means to have peace or approach peace in this time. And I'm heading to rehearsal for that after this, so hope you can come on Saturday.
That's great. That's exciting. Should we bring in Graham now? Is that time for that?
Graham time.
Make an appearance.
Thanks, Alexa.
Thanks so much. That was great.
And thank you everyone for. I'm going back and looking at some of the comments, and I hope I can answer questions later once we get to the end. But
yeah, thanks so much. And Graham, hi.
Hey. All these pizzas are awesome so far. Alexa, that was so good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just want to shout out Jose Lozano, who's the videographer, one more time from Magic Spoon Productions. He just does incredible work. Yeah.
For everybody. He did this great. Yeah. So Graham, do you want to talk about your piece that's coming up? We're going to see in a second.
Sure. It's an Alice Rahone painting called La Cañada, and then there's a secondary piece that was next to it that was also inspiring. I used to go to a museum called the Wadsworth Athenaeum when I was a kid. I was very young, and
Hartford, Connecticut.
Yeah, exactly. And I liked the Tanguy paintings, the Yves Tanguy paintings. I think for me they looked like science fiction or something. And my dad would be at work, and I would walk over to the Athenaeum with my brother. And Alice Rahone's paintings reminded me of a more organic, more earthbound version of the Tanguy. And then when I learned more about her, she had come from France in the late 30s. Then the war started in Europe, and so she came to Mexico, and then so she ended up staying in Mexico. But she's coming from that same scene where Tanguy had been painting. Her background as a poet, but then she crossed over into painting. So it's just this. Like the Tanguy and the Rahone stuff, they create these worlds, and worlds in music you get to explore narratively, and I think they're very open to interpretation. And so this is just one musical take on what this painting might be saying.
Great, thank you very much. I guess we'll let the next few roll, as it were.
My name is Michael Anthony García, and I'm a multidisciplinary artist and independent curator based in Austin, Texas. For this iteration of SoundsSpace, I have produced a new performance that is literally in conversation with the painting The Charge by Frederick Sackrider Remington from 1906. The painting itself reflects a fascination at the time with the frontier culture of the American West, and my performance, titled Dusted, is an ekphrastic poem that was written for and is being recited to the individuals in that painting as a means of engaging time travel and making a connection with those characters and expressing my opinions to them as a Mexican American who lives in our current time, which still reflects a reverence for their culture over mine. Now, as the poem draws to a close, I attempt to establish a connection through our shared humanity and our mutual mortality. You. There's a dust up on the trail. A pale, yellow haze. By default, dust settles. But when it hangs in the air, observant, vigilant, it is because it obfuscates the trail with an enduring intention that goes back to when dust was stone and remembers its form, a secret handshake across calendars. Hush. But through its powdered lineage, it reveals stone's vulnerability. It reveals immutability for the fallacy it is, and gives hope that enough rubbing will wear away at the rock. That our archetypes should be painted as a farce, as a tragicomical clown that lives on the outskirts of a page that is turned, finger licked, pinched to the left, as though the left was the past. That your archetype, solidified in celluloid in a genre that lives in the past like your politics, is venerated, a gold standard represented in black and white, and that any deviation isn't worth the dust on your boots. Because you believe that the same dust coating your book somehow inoculates their contents from critique, as though time heals all the wounds your ancestors inflicted, as though this land, made from all these layers of dust, doesn't have a history outside of the time you've trampled upon it. Me? I don't just mean a time when Texas was Mexico, but from before Mexico was Mexico. This dust that migrates more freely despite checkpoints, despite an icy vigilance, the dust will go wherever the hell it wants. And sometimes it's up to the complex systems that are the wind's whims. It doesn't know here from there, doesn't know what a map is, let alone lines that carve it up. Dust can be gray, blur our vision, bespeckle film so that the image it captures records its presence. Tiny fossils of "I was here" tells a true story of what was hanging in the air, unafraid. It's the kind of presence that is almost imperceptible until you shine the floodlight on it, hunt it across the desert with your eyes in a circle of brightness that lights up the wild in animals' eyes, while ours are dark and tamed and shiver in a deadly breath of a desert's cold. Us, we should all know now that the masculine, that urge to purge, to shoot, to kill, to chase the dark, but that this masculine could be tamed, could be allowed to settle, to calm its fragile heart, to wear away at its rocky facade so it softens and isn't afraid of the dark. That its core of insecurity be led down a dusty trail, not upon the backs of beasts, those who you kneel upon, or those whose hooves stir up this cloud of brown, but that this core could be tamed like our eyes. That this core of border-prone maleness be tamed to not question the science that is nature's intelligence, not fight its laws that stars write, gravity edits, emptiness approves, and time enforces, that it lets the soot be soot and do what it knows to do. Only then can you see that we are all dust, to dust, to dust, to dust, to dust, to dust, to dust.
Dedication to Cathedrals is a piece that's about 3 to 4 minutes long, made out of a lot of smaller field recording samples and like granular textural sounds, kind of combined into one bigger piece. The idea is to take very small parts to build a bigger whole that can be recognized as one object, like much like you would build a cathedral or a building or something large that has, it's a sum of a lot of smaller parts. But sonically, I wanted to kind of take a lot of smaller things and build this one sound with it. So as the piece kind of goes, you see this arc of going from like a smaller sounds slowly accumulating, becoming this bigger piece, and then deconstructing towards the end. Obviously, there are harmonic and melodic elements to it, but the main focus of the piece is kind of recognizing that you can take smaller parts and they amass to create this whole that maybe could be recognized as those smaller parts, but also something completely different.
Hi, my name is Jose Villalobos. The title of my performance is Lengua, which is a performance about the silencing of queer individuals, specifically within the Latinx community and La Frontera.
Our voices are constantly erased, silenced, and furthermore, murdered. Jose Roberto Diaz, March 25th, 2019. After deciding that a faggot had nothing to offer, considered an empty vessel, Jose was stoned to death and his body carved passionately, and it read, Morro, Hueco y Maricón. Roxana Hernandez, October 26, 2019. Being displaced from Honduras, Hernandez contracted HIV from repeated gang-related rapes. Fleeing her own country for safety, she died in ICE customs as she was provided with inadequate health care. She was murdered. Joana Medina Leon, June 1st, 2019. This is yet another unfortunate example of an individual who illegally enters the United States with an untreated, unscreened medical condition. Stated Corey A. Price, Field Office Director for ICE. Joanna, HIV positive, died at the hands of ICE. Border Patrol Juan David Ortiz, September 17, 2018. Killed 4 trans women. One of them was 29 years old, Melissa Ramirez. The officer shot Melissa in the head after she exited his vehicle just because she needed to urinate. Julissa Ramirez, Noemi Medina Martinez, a lesbian couple, were identified January 16, 2022. These women were found tortured, shot, and dismembered in Ciudad Juárez, Mexico.
That's quite a way to end it.
Yeah, that's a powerful piece to end with.
Yeah, it really is. Much different in tone than the other things we saw. But we still have a little bit of time. There's still quite a few people tuned in to us, and 3 of the artists are here, Michael, Alexa, and Graham, and they can answer your questions if you want to put them in the Q&A. I don't see any yet, but I have one for Michael. I just loved your performance, and I just wondered, I love the use of dust as a metaphor, and the fact that you picked up on that, and having looked at that painting so many times, never even thinking about dust and connection to it, but of course it's like everywhere in that painting. And I just wonder, it's sort of a chicken and egg question. Did the painting give you the idea to use dust as like a part of your written piece, or how did it come about? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, very much so. I mean, this piece was very much site specific, if you will, in reference to this painting. And so I made like two or three trips to the museum trying to select works. And it kept changing over time, and the piece had never felt quite right. But then for some reason, that one just it just really, I connected with it on a visceral level. And part of it was that kind of that the haze that exists within it, both visually and then, so many different things that it could mean. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I started from.
Did you create the projections on your back yourself? I mean,
I did, yes. Yeah. So, again, it's an ekphrastic poem about this painting specifically, but then I wanted to kind of bring in my own imagery and other themes that I kind of explore in my kind of more recently in my performative practices. Yeah.
No questions. I can't believe nobody has questions. I think that was amazing. I'm so surprised. Usually, but anyway, maybe everyone's just sort of taking it all in.
I have another question for Michael. Michael, a beautiful performance. I'm curious. I've never talked to you about this before, but your use of textiles in your work, and I wonder if you could just maybe talk about how that figures into the way that how that informs the work that you make, and also the way that you incorporate it into performances.
Yeah, I've been using textiles in my work for many years now, and for me, it's an abstract way of speaking about corporeal ideas. So, like, I view clothing in particular as fossils of the human body, and so it's a nice way to be figurative in an abstract way. And I also think it's like a really good starting point for people to connect with the work, because either some pattern or some specific article of clothing will help bring someone into the work because it reminds them of someone, or they have their own story that they bring along with it. Yeah, so that's kind of the starting point from that. And then, and then this piece in particular, the use of the plaid is really connected to like the whole idea of Cholo culture and kind of how that can be frowned upon both by, American culture in general, and even by some Latino and Mexican American culture. So,
what was the phrase on it at the end?
A farce to be reckoned with.
Yeah, that was great. That was cool. Does anybody else have any questions for?
You've got a question in the chat now.
You in the chat,
for Steve. Rebellious.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think we all prefer being in person largely, but I certainly miss these sort of gatherings of large numbers of people. That I really miss being part of that community that I experienced in these museum shows. But I think one thing that is really nice about this virtual context is the opportunity to hear more from the artists themselves. I think it's often difficult to have these sorts of conversations, particularly with a curator like Carter, to think, just talk about the depth and the thought the work that goes into these performances, because there is so much depth and layers to everything. So I think that's like one of the positive impacts of this project. And I also think like the opportunity to generate some work samples is really nice. And there's a certain intimacy of performance that is evident in this setting. But yeah, so both
It's
have
to
their merits.
live on YouTube forever, which is kind of great, I think. And I think the fact that it's produced a little bit makes it a different animal than an in-person live performance. They're just not, one's not better than the other, it's just different. So that's, yeah.
One question I have for the other artists as well is, did you think about, like, because I kind of had to think about, okay, if this is going to be filmed, like, would there be, like, what would I do differently than if it were an in-person thing, and knowing that people will, be kind of coming by or maybe going in a way, whereas this was like, they're going to be probably focused on the film for, yeah.
I know I definitely had to consider it from a different angle, but I've kind of been doing that, since the pandemic began, because, I was doing a lot of performance work before that, and just thinking about, okay, well, I want to be able to do this for a while in front of people. And so I've been switching more to video work myself. And so I did kind of approach this in that way. And so I kind of had like a storyboard that went along with it. And thank you to Jose, who, obviously an amazing artist in his own right, for being able to be so flexible to work with all the different types of things that we've put together for this. But yeah, so I kind of gave him that storyboard and kind of had this idea of like where I wanted this shot to be in that and things like that. So yeah, I definitely felt like I had to consider it.
Jose did a great job of integrating the art with it was just beautifully done, really great. It can't be easy.
Yeah, for me, the difference between, I think it's so intimate, the film, like being in a studio is being under a microscope when you're playing music compared to playing live. And, in the when the museum's open and SoundSpace is happening, there's just considerably more ambient noise. There's a lot more going on. The way we did my piece, it wasn't amplified. It went straight into the recording, so I could hear it through the headphones, but there was no sound in the room. So we would have had to take into account the room acoustics plus the ambient noise of the people and the museum itself. And SoundSpace is a very active environment, so there's also sound often coming in from other things around the museum. So that, I love being in person as well, but that's the one of the advantages. It's like film versus theater. You get a lot more you get close-ups in film, and you don't get close-ups in theater. And so this is musically for me, it was a bit more of a close-up.
Well, great. I think we're a little bit out of time, but so I'm going to wrap up. But this was such a great program. I can just tell from all the comments that people were really, really engaged with this. And so I just want to say that if you enjoyed the event tonight and want to support what we do at the Blanton, please become a member. Being a member is one of the best way. It's one of the things we depend on the most from our community to help support us. So please consider joining if you are not already a member. You can, if you want to find out about what's coming up and what's going on at the museum, you can, we have a twice a month newsletter, and you can sign up for that at blantonmuseum.org/subscribe. I want to say too that we have a fantastic show up right now on a Colombian artist named Oscar Munoz, a contemporary artist that's really just a world-class exhibition. I encourage everyone to just come see it if you haven't already. And then if you want to contribute any amount of money to help support what we do, you can go to blantonmuseum.org/pay what you wish. So we thank you for your interest and support in what we do. We have curated conversations and all kinds of Zoom formatted events regularly. So just check our website. And thanks to Steve for putting together this amazing program. Thanks to all the artists and performers who did such incredible work. And I look forward to watching this again on Zoom myself, on YouTube myself. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.